Hello all. I'm hoping you can hear me loudly and clear. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear. That's good. Great to see so many of you here today. I'm just going to be messing around with my view quickly so I can make sure that I can see everybody. Right, the plan is for today is Chloe, who I'll hand over to in a second, is going to deliver a talk for about 45 minutes, and then there'll be time at the end, about a quarter of an hour, for any questions you have. Now, I've purposely set this up differently to a normal Zoom meeting. You are muted and you won't be able to unmute yourself because it will just save me from dealing with the chaos my end. Because I'm going to be setting up videos to play you and things like that as Chloe instructs me. If you do have any questions and you'd like to ask a question at the end, please put them in the chat and I'll be picking them up and copying and pasting them into a document that I can then read to Chloe. So any questions you have as we go through today in the next 45 minutes, put them in the chat. If for some reason you don't know how to access the chat, don't worry. If we get through the questions in the chat and I still have time, I'll ask for hands up, then I can unmute you. But as I say, it's going to be slightly different today because you won't be able to unmute yourself in the usual way. The only third and final thing for me to say is I am recording this. So for those people that couldn't make it today, and I know a few people are going to be slightly late as well, they'll be able to catch up should they wish to at another time. And we can hear other people joining us now, which is all very exciting. So lovely to see. I think we have 28 people are in with us now, which is wonderful. So just to reiterate one more time, and then I'll hand over to Chloe. You're all going to be muted and you won't be able to unmute yourself. But if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And Chloe, if you can remind people as we go through, and then we'll pick them up at the end. So I'll hand over to Chloe now. There you go.
Let's see what kind of can I see what kind of a picture? I don't know where I'm sitting.
You don't know where you're
I
sitting?
can't even see me.
I can't even see you. You look like that.
There we go. I'll look in that camera instead.
Okay.
This is very weird because of course I can't look at your faces. Guy's going to have to monitor for facial reactions, please. Welcome, and many of you, I think, from a quick glance over at the screen, I have probably told some or all or bits of this to before. This is going to be a very quick overview. This may not seem like a quick overview to you, but it is a quick overview of basically how the voice works. I'm going to cover what is generally regarded to be the three parts of the voice. We call it the power, or the bellows, the source, the valve, and the filter, or the megaphone. And I'll go into detail with those. And at the end of each sort of smallish section, I'll sort of remind you to jot down any questions. I've got various videos to show you, some of which I don't think there are any, but if there are any, I'll warn you to look away if you're a bit squeamish. But I don't think there are any that should really worry you too much. Guy is going to be my assistant today, not so glamorous. And I might be demonstrating a couple of things on him. Just as a quick kind of game, really, and I know that I've played this game with quite a few of you before, but as a quick poll, using your fingers in front of you, can I have a quick show of how big we think the vocal folds are? If you imagine you're looking at folds.
They were known as chords.
Yes, I know, but I'm going to cover that in a minute. Vocal cords to you, but we're going to cover that. So if you hold your fingers up in front of you, roughly, yeah, I can see. Yeah, what have we got, Guy? We're looking at probably...
Some people about the size of a penny.
Yeah.
Some people much, much bigger.
Yeah, good. Okay, so you're looking at roughly the size of the top of my smallest finger as your vocal folds. They vary in size between men and women. Obviously, we've got bigger and smaller, women have smaller larynxes than men. But that just puts into context what I'm about to explain. So if you think of your tiny little vocal cords as being really tiny little muscles, this might make a bit more sense. So I'm going to start at the bottom with the lungs and the diaphragm, that thing that you've heard so much about. And Guy's going to show us a quick video which shows you the action of the lungs, the ribs, not quite yet, of the lungs, the ribs and the diaphragm. And what I want you to get a sense of when you watch this is the movement. and the expansion of the rib cage, the expansion of the lungs, and watch the action of the diaphragm. Watch what it does. So you're looking for this movement. And I want you to see the expansion of the rib cage in sort of a swinging motion and the flattening of the diaphragm at the same time. And you'll see how everything works together. And I'm going to come back to that flattening of the diaphragm later on. So have a quick look at this video and enjoy.
The primary muscle of respiration is the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a thin, dome-shaped layer of muscle and tendon that separates the abdominal cavity from the chest cavity. It gains its shape from its attachments and from the organs that surround it, especially the heart, lungs, and liver. The diaphragm attaches at the costals along the lower rib cage, high in the front at the sternum, and deeply...
Okay, hopefully that worked this time. And moving on.
And because nobody needs to hear that voice for very much longer, because personally I find it utterly tedious. What I was getting you to look at was just that swing, expansion, and the flattening of the diaphragm. Why is that important? I have a real bugbear, as some of you know, with the phrase diaphragmatic breathing. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not breathing with your diaphragm, you're either dead or on a ventilator. Your diaphragm works without anything that you do. You do not need to do anything to make your diaphragm work. But we can make it more efficient, and you can have problems with it, because it is, after all, a muscle. We can get muscle spasms. You've probably all experienced at some point in your life a stitch. That's what we're talking about. So what I want to talk about a little bit with the breathing is why we talk about a low breath, which is what I refer to. You may have heard that called a diaphragmatic breath. I call it a low breath. I'm going to recruit my glamorous assistant here to demonstrate. Before I do, can you all see my other glamorous assistant, Nigel, behind me? Good. And Nigel here, as you can see, the gap between the jaw, the skull, it's okay, the skull and the shoulders is quite small. This is filled with muscle. And these muscles attach to the neck here and to the upper ribs here. And we can use them to help us breathe. That's when we do these breaths. The ones that we tend to do from pretty much about teenage years onwards, as soon as life starts to get involved. But if you look at the bottom of the rib cage, what that awful voice referred to as the costals, down here, you've got a huge gap, an absolutely enormous gap between the diaphragm and the pelvis. That's also filled, admittedly, with some very vital organs, but also with an enormously thick and strong sheet of muscle, which is attached to the rib cage. So you've got massively strong voluntary muscles down here and quite small voluntary muscles up here. And I'm not going to make you guess which ones are going to be more efficient to help you breathe. These ones are bigger. So, with the aid of my glamorous assistant here, hello.
Hello.
I'm going to get you to demonstrate some belly breathing.
Okay.
Okay, so what I want you to do, because I want you all to see this in real life. That's not, it'll do. I know, it's not the best model I could have got, but it was all I had. Actually, can you stand next to Nigel so we've got a... Are they standing next to each other? Yeah, perfect. I can't really see the screen very well. And what I want you to do is just to put your hands onto your ribs for me. That's not your ribs, that's your waist. That's it. His anatomy's terrible, by the way. I mean, it's lovely anatomy, but his anatomy knowledge is terrible. And now take a high breath. Right. What did you see the movement happen up here and not here? Good. Breathe out. And now take a low breath for me. Good. Yeah, we need to work on this, don't we? Okay. So, what I want you to do is to breathe into my hand. There we go. Better? Could you all see that? Good. So that's where we're aiming for the breath to happen. These muscles here are huge, and we need these ones to be working. And the common misconception when we sing is that what we need to do is take a huge breath. This. We do not need to do this for singing.
My stomach's gone in.
Right, exactly. We do that for running. That's why he did it, because he runs, allegedly. The breath you need for running is huge and aerobic, and it's quick, and it happens here. It's a very quick in and out breath. The breath we need for singing involves control. These muscles are very easy to control. So if you take this long, slow, low breath down here, and now breathe out slowly, as if you're blowing out a candle. And I'm just going to keep talking while he's breathing out. So this should go on for a really, really long, see, that's like a deflating balloon. This breath's going on forever. Still going? You're out now. Are you actually out?
Yeah.
Have you got any left? See if you can breathe a bit more out. Go. There you go. Good.
I'm into negative now.
Okay. So what I want you to do this time, and you're going to do it quicker than that, hands there again, is breathe that slow breath in, the low breath in, sorry. Breathe all of that out a bit quicker. So all of it out. Go, 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 go. Breathe all the way into negative pressure. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I want you all to watch what happens to his tummy when he then takes a breath in. Go. You see that movement out. This is hard work for girls. We hate doing this. We really, really hate doing this because we're trained to walk around like this all the time. Not that any of us actually do, but we're supposed to do that, apparently. So trying to train this, you might have heard it called the splat breath, or the belly breath, or diaphragmatic breathing. What this does is it activates those big muscles under the rib cage. I'm spending a lot of time talking about breathing because it's quite a contentious topic, and it's usually the thing I get asked most about when people come for lessons, or when I actually had somebody write in and say, could you talk about this in the webinar, because she can't be here. So that's why I'm spending a bit of time on this. Now, I'm going to have a little, I'm going to skip that one, but I'm going to have a little show of this lady who is affectionately known as the doyenne of singing. She's sort of the singing teacher's singing teacher, and she's got a little video that shows you how this method works, accent method, that one.
Okay.
And I really hope you can see it and hear it. She is going to do a quick session. It's only about a minute and a half long, where she's using a fantastic sounding singer and encouraging him to use this part of the body, using these big muscles here, to project the sound. So just have a watch of this.
Okay. Hopefully you'll be able to see and hear this. I think I've set it up right.
Janice Chapman. I'm a singing teacher and a singer, and also the author of this book, Singing and Teaching Singing, A Holistic Approach to Classical Voice.
Yeah, it's working.
I'm just going to demonstrate the out breath which connects to the support, using primal sound as the main contributor. I'd like you just to put your fingers on the waistband for a moment, just to feel that, and shout down the room, hey!
Hey!
Okay, that was pretty connected.
In your bed.
Just use your fingers here as well. Hey!
Hey!
Okay, remember that your belly wall stays relaxed. This is just going to help us train the body to have a deliberate connection to these muscles, even though under primal sound they're quite automatic. So with your hands on your waistband, James, for a moment, and maintaining your posture, just using that physical reaction from the torso, let's go. Starting on a B flat, we're doing the hey-ha exercise.
Hey, ha, hey, ha, hey, ha, hey, ha.
And that's good because you maintained the connection to those muscles right to the end of the scale, which was coming down. Do the next one.
Yep.
Okay.
So
You can really see that in his belly.
yeah,
Shots in
you
his
should be
belly.
able to really see how those muscles were working. I was incredibly lucky, and it really was lucky because I didn't know she was teaching. I was at a conference 2 years ago where Janice was teaching, and I got to see this up close and very personal. She's very hands-on and earthy. She's great fun. I really like her. But it's really fascinating when you actually start to work with that. She had us all She had a room full of singing teachers. There was probably about 50 of us there, all lying on the floor, shouting, hey. It was, yeah, emotional. So this is known as the accent method. If you are interested in it, there is plenty of material out there, and even if you just look on YouTube under the accent method breathing or accent method for singers, there's loads of material out there, and it's a really, really good, if you've always been confused about breathing for singing, it's a really, really good place to start if you want to just get some information and see it explained. And Janice is fabulous, as is a chap called Ron Morris, who's an Australian countertenor who was instrumental in developing the technique. So that's just a bit of interest for you. The last thing I want to talk about with breathing is how we can use the breath to calm. So one of the things that we all know about is how singing is so beneficial for mood and for anxiety, and it's just fabulous for well-being. We all know this. It's partly to do with endorphins, those magical chemicals in the brain. There's a very interesting thing that happens when we start to control our breathing, which is effectively all we're trying to do when we talk about breathing for singing. When I was showing you Guy doing those high breaths, those are the running breaths. They're also the breaths that you use when you are, and this is my favourite analogy, so apologies for those who've heard it before, when you're running away from a bear. Your brain is very, very, very dumb at differentiating between running away from a bear and doing your tax return, or running away from a bear and doing an exam. It can't differentiate, it just sees threat. So that response of the high, quick, I need oxygen breath happens regardless of what you're doing. That's sort of how it works. And we can actually trick the body into that not happening anymore by changing the way we breathe. And one of the ways we can do this is the exercise I got Guy to do, which was taking that deep, low breath into the belly and then breathing out very slowly. And what I like to do, and I do this quite a lot with some of my my patients in the osteopathy clinic, is I get them to breathe in for a count of, say, 4, and breathe out slowly for a count of 8. It sounds really simple, and it's the kind of silly, simple exercise that you're less likely to do. But I guarantee you, if you are struggling to sleep, or you're having a bit of an anxiety attack, anything like that, it won't cure it, but it will help, is if you can sit and do that 10 times in a row, and it does take some concentration to do it, in for 4, out for 8, even better, in for 8 and out for 16, but I'd be amazed if you can do it, don't just count faster. Double the out breath compared to the in breath. Your running away brain can't do that if it's running from a bear. It can't do a slow out breath. It can't think, oh, I've got time to breathe when you're in a threat situation. So if you make it take time to breathe, it sort of has a trick effect on that system. This is just a little aside for you. It's just quite a useful thing. And that's one of the reasons why singing, because we have to control that out breath to last for a whole phrase, can have that lovely effect on the body. So there you go. Bit of useless information for you there. Moving on. Vocal folds. You heard me call them folds, and you've probably heard them called chords, except for the ones of you that I teach or have heard me yak on about them. I can't remember exactly when this terminology changed, but generally speaking in pedagogy, they're now called folds. And the reason for this is that they are, in fact, folds of muscle. That's all they are. Inside your larynx here, inside your neck, you've got your esophagus down the back, and then you've got your windpipe down the front. And obviously the windpipe's connected to the lungs. In the middle of that, there's this two lots of cartilage, 2 rings of cartilage, a small round one and a slightly bigger one. And inside the slightly bigger shield-shaped one, which is the thyroid cartilage, not the thyroid gland, the thyroid cartilage, houses your vocal folds. So they're this sort of 2 pieces of muscle stretched thinly across the cartilage. And the way they work is something like this video that Guy's just going to show you now. So what you can see here is as they open, as you breathe in, the folds open. You can, yeah, that's perfect. When they go closer together, that's when you're whispering. That's this sound, so they get close, but they're not completely closed. When they close completely, here, ah, that's what you're achieving there. This is looking down on the vocal folds, by the way, not looking straight at them. So you're looking effectively down your throat. And the bottom is the front of your Adam's apple, or what would be your Adam's apple. What you can see here is a tilt of the shield-shaped cartilage, and that's tilting to allow a stretch to happen. And I think that's pretty much it. That's it. That's lovely. I just really like that animation because I think it shows everything we need to see. What you see happening is the folds coming close together to make a sound. And it's very like when you put a blade of grass between your thumbs and then blow. If that seal isn't tight, all you're going to get is that sound. Or, a bit of diplophonia there. That was exciting. You get that very breathy sound. When the chords folds meet nice and tight, you get you get this very clean sound. I'm going to come back to the next video in a second, guys, so hold on. What we're looking for with the vocal folds is to get a clean, clear tone. We call it clear tone. There's nothing very exciting about that, we just call clear tone. And clear tone is important for a number of reasons. One is that it is the most efficient way of singing. It also allows for increased harmonic resonance in the voice and more efficient breathing. So that's the difference, like I said, between and you can immediately hear that the second one is louder. It's carrying much, much further. I don't need to do anything for you to hear that clearly. But the softer one, which is quite useful, we would still use that. I still want the option to be able to use that if I'm singing a nice, soft, gentle pop ballad, not that I do, but into a microphone. That might be a voice that I'd want to use. I want to have access to it, but I don't want that to be the default. This is a lovely little video. Well, I think it's lovely. If you are squeamish, this is the one that you want to look away from. This is an endoscope that shows you exactly how the vocal folds work. And they work in a way of coming together like in a slapping motion. And I just find it useful to have a picture in your mind of what's actually happening inside there. And I'm going to come on to why as soon as you've seen this.
I'm not sure there's any sound on this.
No, there isn't any sound.
Really see the slapping.
Slap and wiggle. So it's like a wave effect. It doesn't happen this slowly in real life. This is a stroboscopy. So that's I actually genuinely couldn't find a better one than that. I think that was just fabulous. I've had my own scoped, but unfortunately the day I had mine done, the strobe wasn't working. And so mine's just super, super fast. And you can't really see that movement as clearly. It's also not particularly pleasant having it done. It's very interesting, but they stick a camera up your nose and I wouldn't recommend it. The reason I wanted you to see that is that you now get the image with those tiny vocal folds and that movement of what happens if you shout or scream. What's going to happen to those folds? I keep calling them chords, that's your fault. It's effectively like clapping your hands really hard for a really long time. You're going to get sore. And if you do it for long enough, you're going to get bruises or calluses. And that's exactly what happens to the vocal folds over time. If you get somebody who is constantly shouting or using their voice too hard, too loud, inefficiently, they develop little tiny bleeds. And eventually they develop little tiny calluses. We've all heard of nodes or polyps or cysts or nodules, the great nodules. And just as an aside, those go away. just as calluses on your hands do. They can go away with rest and proper reconditioning of the voice. They don't have to be operated on. But it tends, now that the way that they operate has got so much more efficient and effective, people tend to go for that because it's a quick fix. Whereas vocal rehabilitation is not a quick fix. It takes a long time to get to that point. It's going to take a long time to fix it, and people often don't want to put in the time, and that's fine if you're a busy performer. Adele, for example, if you've got a 300 gig tour coming up, you don't have time to take 6 weeks off to rest your voice and rehabilitate your voice. You're going to have the surgery and get back going quickly. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about here is, again, this idea of the larynx being able to move. You saw it tilting when it wanted to go, when the folds wanted to stretch higher. It needs to be able to move in the neck. So one thing I'd like you to just try is, if you pop your fingers, gentlemen on your Adam's apple, ladies where yours would be, I'm sure you can find the bump. Here's an interesting point. If you find your fold, everybody has them, I'm afraid, ladies. It's not because we're all getting old. I can't actually see my own because the clock's in the way. But you can see here, yes, I have a fold here. That's my thyroid cartilage here. And if I put my fingers here, just flat, gently, don't press hard, you will choke yourselves, and take a deep breath in. You'll feel it descend. You should feel it descend. I hope you felt it descend. And it just slides down. And that's important. That movement's very important. It needs to be able to do that when you take a breath. It resets, it lowers, it stretches in the sling of muscle that holds it there. It also needs to be able to go up, but let's leave that for a minute. Just to show you, because this is another thing that I come across a lot in lessons and a lot in choirs, this idea of when the sound goes up, so does the head. And when the sound goes down, so does the head. And I'm sure we've all seen singers do this. It's not particularly helpful, in fact, quite the opposite. Ideally, you want, for an ideal performance position, you want your chin parallel to the floor. So if you imagined you were resting your chin on a shelf. Just to give you an idea of how much the neck muscles affect the larynx movement, what I'd like you to do when Guy shows you this video, Guy, if you can just put the mouse around the larynx to show what I want them to look at.
I'll have to put it on now, yeah?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so the larynx is down here.
Yeah, so this is a very short video. It's about 30 seconds long. This is literally just somebody moving their head. Look at the stretch in the muscles, pulling the larynx out of position and jamming it back against the neck, against the spine. So that's quite a lot of movement happening there. This is demonstrated purely to show, this is in a functional MRI machine, which Guy has personal experience of, I believe. That'll do, thank you. It's quite a nice little illustration for those of us who have a habit of doing this, and I say us because if you are one of them, believe me, you are not alone. We've all been there. If you are one of those, there are some nice little exercises you can do, such as putting your hand on the back of your head when you sing, or standing with your head up against a wall, or put something behind your head. Yoga pillows are fabulous for this. If you know those little square pillows, if you stand with your head against one of those against the wall, they're brilliant for keeping your head nice and still. Having said that, we don't always want the neck to be completely rigid, because if we sit with it like this is not going to be particularly helpful either. So sometimes if there is an issue with tension or rigidity in these muscles, sometimes just moving the neck gently from side to side is also quite useful for when you're singing, because it just frees up these muscles that might be restricting movement up and down.
That's the reason why in choir I often asked you to trace like a figure of 8 with your nose,
Yep.
a very small figure of 8 while you were singing. So people couldn't see it, but the movement is just keeping the neck muscles moving.
Absolutely. When we talk about the larynx moving and changing position, a little interesting point here is this idea of registers. And I do get asked about this quite a lot, particularly by the younger students who are all over YouTube. And they're all about chest voice. The human voice, arguably, and I say arguably because scientific research is always happening and it's always changing, and I have to be quite careful with what information I give you because it's literally changing by the year. But traditionally, we talk about registers in the voice. You'll hear them called M0, M1, M2. You'll hear chest voice, mixed voice. You'll hear head voice, falsetto, whistle register. All of these terms, they just denote a position of the larynx and a quality of the sound. Chest voice, quick demo. Would you like to demo or shall I demo? I'll demo. Okay, so quick demo. So you just pop your hand on your chest and you're going to sing a nice low note. So, ah. And around about there, you should feel some vibration in your hand. Just a little bit. Ah. I refer to that as chest voice because to me that makes perfect sense. I'm feeling the resonance in my chest. If I go up an octave, ah, I'm now at the point where I can sort of switch between, if I wanted to, I can switch between speaking and singing. I'm in what some people would term mixed voice, speech register, possibly a bit of head voice, who knows. I'm not going to go up another octave because we have neighbours and just don't want to annoy them really. But you can imagine that as I go up another octave, I'm going to be resonating even higher. And I call this head voice because I personally feel the resonance around this area. And again, they're just terms used to denote where the resonance is felt, really. But the important point about registers is about where the larynx changes position. So what you're going to hear, I'm now going to demonstrate one of my register changes. They're called passaggi, or each one is a passaggio, i.e. a passage or a pathway in Italian. This is the point where the larynx has to change position to enable a different stretch of the vocal folds. So here's my lower passaggio, and I'm going to go ah, and you definitely heard that. That was really clunky. And going back up, you'll hear it again. Ah. So what's happened is I've got to a point where my larynx physically can't maintain that position anymore, and it has to change position to allow for the next stage. In the female voice, this happens again. At around about, altos, you're going to find suddenly a little light bulb's going to go off. Around about a D above middle C, possibly an E natural is usual for sopranos. They're in slightly different positions for different voice parts. Mine's bang on an E natural. And for years, I couldn't sing an E natural, and I didn't know why until a teacher, not very long ago, in fact, said to me, "Oh, that's your upper passaggio." Obviously. It's like, oh, light bulb. So one of the things we do in classical training particularly is work to smooth the transition of the larynx on that point. So moving on, we will talk about the last part of the voice, which is the filter, which is basically everything from the larynx up. So you have your effectively your resonating chamber, your head. This whole thing is a resonating chamber because the sound's coming up here and it's going to then bounce around inside this area. We've got the lips, the cheeks, the jaw, the tongue, the teeth, the tongue. Right. We'll come to the tongue in a minute. So the lips, the tongue and the teeth and the lips, known as the articulators, are really, really important because they change the quality of the sound. I can change what you hear just by changing my mouth shape. So if I sing an oo, for example, you're going to hear ooh, and then I drop my jaw, ooh. Could you hear how much extra sound there was involved there? There's all different harmonics coming in there. It's sort of baby introduction to overtone singing that, but which I don't know anything about, so please don't quiz me on that. So this area here has a huge part to play in changing what the sound is. The tongue's enormous by comparison to everything else here, and particularly in comparison to the vocal folds, the tongue is enormous. And I like to refer to the tongue as an over-enthusiastic Labrador. It really, really wants to help. It always wants to help, and it's never in the right place at the right time, unless it's a really, really, really well-trained Labrador. And good luck with that. The tongue has a tendency, particularly when we want to sing very high, of going, I know what you want. I'm going to grab hold of your larynx and I'm going to lift it up with the root of the tongue. I'm going to lift it. And I think we've all experienced that feeling of tightness and, oh God, that feels horrible up there. That's your tongue getting involved. And what I would like to show you, with his permission, is Guy singing in an fMRI. And what Guy will show you with the mouse and demonstrate is how big the tongue is and how it moves back to the back of the mouth. There's a tendency to go towards the back of the mouth and down. And I think you'll find this quite interesting.
I was purposely trying to move my tongue muscles back to squash my larynx to demonstrate this, because I knew I was going to end up with these videos and they would be a good teaching aid. So that's
He would say that.
And I will tell you now, it's so difficult to sing in one of these machines. It's unbelievably difficult. I spent 2 hours in here.
Strapped to a machine with a clanging noise in your head. Right.
2 hours, right.
Let's have a play.
Okay, so this is I'll point out now, in terms of the tongue, that big thing in the middle there is the tongue. It's absolutely huge. We see the blade of the tongue, which is coming towards my mouth.
Tip, yeah.
Yeah, the tip, or the blade is the very tip, as we call it.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the bit that you see in the mouth, but this whole thing here is my tongue muscle going right the way down there, and down here is my larynx, is what you're looking at there. So I'll play this for you, and yes.
Thank you, Guy.
It's not very nice.
Just explain what you were doing.
Right, so what you're seeing up here, this thing that's shooting up and down here is my velum. So that's what you refer to as your soft palate. That's allowing passage through to my nose. The sound can either go through my nose if I lower it or raise it. It also, by bending this kind of contraption down here forward, you can angle the sound onto the hard palate, which gives you the brassy sound. When you go, it's actually, what's it called, the epiglottic sphincter.
Epiglottic sphincter.
You're kind of bending that round to get that brassy sound. Down here, right down the bottom here, is where it's just out of shot, would be my vocal folds.
If you fast forward, I think there's a bit where you're singing later on. I think there is, somewhere in here.
I have often walked down this street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. All at once am I several stories.
We won't talk about the tuning.
No, we won't talk about it. In fairness, he did have a very loud clanging that was pitched going on in his ear all the time. So thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing for people to see, that this is what's happening. When you feel that tightness and you're like, I just can't hit that note, that's the tongue getting involved, usually. Not always, but often. It's the tongue, root of the tongue, getting involved with grabbing hold of the larynx and trying to lift it up.
And if I could just interject, I've been in very many vocal forums and teaching sessions where the singing teacher has actually got a bit of gauze and got the singing student to hold on to their tongue outside of their mouth while they're singing.
I have a slightly nicer technique which I learned from another teacher, which is what we call Charlie's Angels, where you put one thumb under your jaw here. This finger touches your nose. I'm just going to say there. And you have to stick your tongue out and sing like this. Somebody hasn't warmed up today. But that's the effect of trying to keep the tongue forward and away from the larynx. So a couple of things I want to show you. Again, we're talking about how you can change the sound using this part of the vocal tract, effectively, the filter. There was a wonderful Russian singer, Dmitry Horostovsky, who very sadly died recently, a couple of years ago, I think. And it is a masterclass in elongating the vocal tract using the lips. The guy's going to show you a quick clip of this. I think I've paused it at the right place. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm a sucker for a bass voice, but just wonderful stuff. But you can see how he's really, everything's coming forward and he's creating this very rich, powerful sound. He's making his vocal tract longer. It's as simple as that. You make the lips further forward, the distance from here to here increases. You're going to get more carrying and more power.
If I can interject again, I was once played what human vocal cords sound like without all these filters. So, in other words, I think actually they used a pig. It was a pig's vocal, which would be very similar. I wish that we'd found that video actually.
Oh, I'll try and find it.
It's literally a zzz. That's the only sound our vocal folds make. Everything else, speech, all of the rest of it is all to do with the filter. Amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. And the last thing I want to show you is the complete sort of I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Opposite will do. And this is how very high soprano, right up in the top of the soprano register, can open the sound to get a bigger, higher sound. And this Nina Damrau, many of you will have seen this. It's been doing the rounds on Facebook for a while, for sure, and probably Instagram as well, although I'm not on that. She, again, this is a masterclass. You'll know the song for sure, and just watch what her lips do on the very high notes. When you're ready, maestro. That'll do. Quite amazing. I mean, that is really sort of the top of how it goes, I think, as far as vocal gymnastics are concerned. And that's pretty much what I've got written down to give you today. So
a couple of questions.
Can I invite questions?
Yeah.
What have we got?
Is that one? First one? Hang on.
Who is this doyen of singing? This is Janice Chapman, Dame Janice Chapman, I think she is. She's an Australian, I think she was a soprano. She's now in her 80s. And what I will do is when we finish this, I'll put a link to who she is, a bit of a biog. And
we'll put it in when this goes, the recording goes. You'll have links to all the videos as well. Yeah, she was quite extraordinary. She is quite extraordinary. God, she'd kill me for saying that. She's wonderful. And I also have her book if anyone is interested in reading it. But I'm going to guard it jealously because it's one of my favourite books. Next one. When I'm trying to record for the virtual choir, my breathing in makes an enormous sound. How can I stop this? You are not alone. So what we're looking at there, if you cast your mind back to the video of the vocal folds on inhalation and on whispering. So on inhalation, they should be open, and on whispering, they're closed. And what's happening there is you're getting a little bit of both happening. So when you inhale, they're a little bit closed. So one of the things you can literally practice quiet breathing. Now, I could do an entire webinar on breathing. I mean, I really could. I could fill 2 hours on breathing because where to start? Sadly, it isn't quite as straightforward as we wish it would be. To breathe quietly, this has to be open and unrestricted. So what I would like you to experiment with is, what does your normal breathing sound like? Do you have a tendency to breathe in a slightly noisy, constricted way? Or can you
breathe in an open and quiet way. And if you find that you tend to be breathing in a constricted way, explore what that feels like. This isn't the best explanation for you, but I hope that some of the stuff you've seen has given you an idea of what's actually going on there. Probably may not have answered your question, but I'm happy for you to shout me later, and we can, whoever it was, we can have a chat about that.
Can I interject there
Yeah.
slightly? I'm just going to show you something from that video again. One of the things you can see here is you can see the vocal folds quite clearly there and there, the V shape. And remember we saw, as Chloe showed them, hitting together to make the sound. Above them around the side here, you have what are referred to as the false vocal folds. You might have heard me refer to them in choir. And often, these don't make any sound as such, but they can get in the way. So if you are sounding constricted like that, like kind of really constricted, it's a sign that there is these side bits here are coming together and also almost meeting and effectively blocking the sound. So it's that kind of really open pipe feeling. And I find that if I really open my throat and have a really open sound, I can feel the inner folds of the skin in my throat being exposed to the flow of air, and you get that cold sensation. You get like a cold sensation in your throat. If I do a really quiet breath, I can feel it all. Areas that are usually moist and kind of all rumpled up are now exposed to the elements, and you get that cold sensation. And it's making sure that your false vocal folds that are around the side here are not getting involved in the bargain, and are basically keeping away and allowing the sound through it. That's another thing.
Can you put the camera back on me for
Yeah.
a second? So one of the ways that we can work this, she's all right, is taking a sort of surprised breath. So a very happy sound, because we tend to close down those false folds. They get very involved when we're anxious, sort of all tied up with this concept of stress and high breathing. And the opposite of that is joy. We don't tend to be that anxious when we're very happy, usually. So if you can go for that sort of sound, you will get a quieter breath, and you will also get a more efficient breath, as opposed to, which is going to get caught halfway, and you're not going to have as much breath anyway. So hopefully that's answered your question.
They're referred to in some schools of singing as the smile breath.
Smile breath,
So you internally smile, rather than smiling with your lips, smile internally. Okay, that's the kind of thing. Right, I've got a few more questions. Where are we? How can I improve my length of breath capability, as when we have to do a quick breath for a longer phrase, I often run out of breath?
Again, this is tied up with how efficiently you're using that breath. So I've actually got that written down as not reaching ends of phrases, running out of air. What I think tends to happen with this, and it's a particular problem for choral singers, when we're singing in a loud environment, we're faced with not being able to hear ourselves, so we tend to sing louder. That will use more air. And I know Guy talks about this a lot, but putting one finger in your ear so that you isolate your own voice. It's nothing to do with the people around you. It's to stop you trying to sing too loud. If you try doing that and try singing a lot quieter, you're going to find you will reach the ends of phrases much more easily. Again, I could do a whole nother thing on breathing, because that is the biggest thing that people tend to come to me for lessons, which is how do I reach the ends of phrases when I'm told I have to take a quick breath there. It is possible. I manage it, and I can guarantee I have not got bigger lungs than Guy. They're exactly the same size. In fact, they're probably quite a lot smaller, and we can sing the same length phrases. You maybe get slightly longer than me.
Slightly, yeah.
But, yeah. Next question. Is it more breathing?
I think that's it. I was going to, please do run a session on breathing. That's maybe something that we could do next term.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think the question is on breathing is, what happens if you're required to sing loud for a loud long phrase?
Yeah, that's harder. Simple. It's harder, and it requires training, and it requires training. I mean, these are muscles like any other, and these are muscles like any other, and they need to be trained to do that. We have natural singers, allegedly, but talented singers practice. It's quite simple. How did you get so good at that? Practice. There's literally there's no shortcut to this. The more you practice doing it with good technique, the easier it becomes.
And I think the technique with these deep breaths is the deep.
Is that low breath?
As you saw with me, the stomach comes out, and you probably saw it with the guys that you saw on the videos. You saw the whole stomach distend.
I have another video on that, which I can put on as a link to when we put this up, of some really amazing demonstration of the belly breath, of the accent method, if you like. It's in I want to say Aida or something.
Yeah, he's naked, isn't he?
It's 2 or 3 slaves or something, is it? Yes. Yeah, their torsos are on display in opera, and it's absolutely fantastic. And you can see it very clearly. They're really using the whole body. It's very interesting. Any more questions?
I think that looks like...
I can hear people leaving one after another.
Yeah,
sorry.
I think that's it on the questions. But yes, if you we'll wrap it up now. And as I say, I will. If I just go back to my camera, hang on a second, so you can see me. The plan is that I will put this recording on the link and send it out, particularly with voices and on, so you get that in that playlist. And I'm going to put in the comments of that video links to all the videos that you've seen today. Plus, we'll try to find the one of the guys breathing, because it's amazing. It's it's the Pellfishers.
Is it?
It's the 2 guys from the Pellfishers. They're singing. They're naked up to the waist. And you can see this huge breaths. It's amazing. It's played often in lessons for exactly this purpose, but it's really about the breath from here. So I'll put all those links in the description of the video, and we'll let you know when it's published. It looks like, from what people have said, that breathing is the thing for Chloe to do next. So we'll try to do something like this again next term, and I'll be doing one very soon on basic music notation. So hopefully there'll be at least another 3 of these, 2 from me and 1 more from Chloe. But thank you for joining us. I'll just see if there's any more. Lovely to see. How do you sing higher quietly? There's a good one.
Yeah.
Higher quietly.
That's for another one.
That's for another one. Can you just give us brief?
Control. It's control, and it's control of the breathing mechanism and release of here.
So it's not about tension.
It requires narrowing of the vocal tract. So you need to train it to sing high and quietly. We go for a much smaller sound to start it. There's an enormous amount of technique involved in it, is the short answer. So I really don't want to go into it too deeply now, because it requires control of the breath and control of the vocal tract, but not in a tense way. That's a very difficult question to answer quickly.
Sounds like you have to think about that. Okay, all right then. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you at the next session, choir session, and watch out for this video if you know anybody that's missed it that might want to see it. So, okay, goodbye all. Thank you to Chloe as well. Thank you very much. Very good session there. It's nice to now we've got the technology sorted. We know that we can do this, so that's all good. Right, take care everyone. I'll shut the session down. Take care. Bye.
Bye.